friends. This is the Be Real Babe podcast, a place where your average babes come together to talk about life stresses, messes, and successes. A place where being yourself is the ultimate goal, where your opinion, your story, and your individual experience matters. Join me, your host B, and my guests for real and raw talks every week, laying it all out there so we can all help each other learn more, grow deeper, and evolve collectively. Now keep in mind, as a disclaimer, no one here is an expert and no one is giving any advice. This is strictly our opinions, thoughts, feelings, and for entertainment purposes only. Now with that being said, it's time. So grab your drink, grab your joint, and let's jump right in. Welcome to the Be Real Babe podcast. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for stopping by the show today. I hope that you have a good time. And if you're a returning listener, watcher, supporter, thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart for coming back time and time again. For those that don't know me, my name is Brandy. I am the host of the show. And today, you guys, we're on episode 222, Being Real About All Body Movements. A solo episode, you guys. Oh my goodness. I didn't realize how effing nervous I am to come on the podcast by myself. I have been so blessed to have so many guests this season. And that was my absolute goal for the podcast this year, was to have as many guests as possible. But, shit fucking happens, and here we are today with a solo episode. I'm just going to rant off on you guys, which I've been doing a lot on YouTube, and so I haven't done it on the podcast for a while, which I'm very, very, again, blessed for all the guests. But today I wanted to dive in and talk a little bit more about all the body positivity movements out there and the red and green flags and yellow flags that I'm seeing in those communities, and just kind of bring everyone together to understand that we all have commonality in this space. And although I'm someone that would be looked at as a quote unquote skinny or thin or smaller body, to be honest, this is another reason why I was so nervous to tape this, is because I've been told my whole life that I have to shut the fuck up and I don't get to have a conversation about my body or my body dysmorphia or anything because I'm quote unquote someone's ideal size. And so I want to address that today and a couple other things that I've noticed in these movements in the TikTok world, in the communities, on social media. And yeah, just wanted to ramble on today about it. And don't worry, we will go back to guest episodes right after this one and for the remainder of the season. But you're stuck with your girl for this episode. And before we jump right in, though, I'm going to remind you that if you are listening on Apple, Rumble, or Spotify, to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, comment if you can. That's super helpful. You can actually comment on Spotify now, and I can see it right away, which is really cool. And then you can also leave me a review, which is very, very helpful for me as well. It gets me out there in the algorithm. And if you're looking for me on social media this year, you can find me on TikTok and Instagram at the Be Real Babe or the Be Real Babe podcast. Now, you guys, I am absolutely so happy to report that I am fully booked for this season. Everyone's locked in. I've got a handful more to record, and we're done for this for the summer. Take a break and come back for season 10 in September. I can't even fucking believe it. That is insane, you guys. So yeah, thank you guys so much for sticking around and listening. It's been incredible watching all the support for all the guests this season, and especially with some of the topics that have been a little difficult to talk about for them and their experiences. It's been so well received, and I have to thank the community and everyone that listens so much for it, especially to my Apple listeners. Looking at the stats is the number one spot that everyone's listening. So thank you so much, you guys. I truly I really appreciate it. So today's episode, generally when I have these kind of research episodes on YouTube, I'll share the screens. But because majority of you listening to the podcast are not viewing it visually, I'm just going to read articles today and read a couple of things from Wikipedia, as we've done on the podcast before. That's not uncommon. But in the YouTube channel, as mentioned, on Mondays and Wednesdays, I do half an hour, 45-minute episodes there. Monday, Keeping Up with Canada, and then Wednesday, Internet Insanity, where I bring you tons of stuff that I find online. And those ones have a little bit more of a visual component because it is YouTube only. Little plug there. But let's get into today's topic. So, honestly, guys, I've started to record this last week, and I just felt like I couldn't get my words out. I felt like I was, in a way, scared to talk about this, which is so crazy because I talk about so many things. But okay, let's just start with me maybe. And you guys have heard probably before in my episodes of body dysmorphia, the types of dysmorphias that I've dealt with. And I think it's safe to say that everybody has dysmorphia, or they're super egotistical and they just think they're amazingly beautiful. And I honestly wish that I could be that person. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. There's a difference between being confident and being vain, right? So I think that's a battle growing up too. But I grew up very small, really small person, very hyperactive. So I was always go, go, go. And I wasn't a big eater. So all of those combined always made me, be a little bit of a smaller body. And then When I turned probably 12 or 13 is when I started noticing people comment about my body, or I wish I had your body, or, oh, you're growing and you're so tall, you're so skinny, or so, or like people would say that I should do modeling or all that. And there was just so many comments focused on my looks, and I just felt super uncomfortable. I wasn't quite sure why that was commented on, why people cared about that at that time. I was more trying to be funny and smart, and I wanted to be those kind of attributes. I wanted to be kind. I really wanted to have an impact in the world. I knew that at a young age. I actually have plenty of articles when I was a young preteen, writing all these articles, and actually talked about body dysmorphia and the push to be in a perfect body. So, something I've been talking about for a long time, and I suffered with it. And one thing that I always noticed growing up is that I was told because I was smaller body, or because I was skinny, or because quote unquote skinny, whatever that means to you, which is a word that ended up being a trigger for all of my 20s. I wasn't allowed to talk about it. I wasn't allowed to have feelings about it. I was pretty, quote unquote, putting in air quotes because that's what other people said. It took me a long time to see that in myself. And so I didn't understand that. And I was so confused why that was why people were saying that about me, and why that was such a negative thing, and why everyone was so focused on my body and what I look like and my looks and stuff. And so it started making me think about those things. And I didn't think about I wasn't anorexic in the sense where I didn't want to eat and get bigger. I don't think consciously that's not what I was thinking. I was a very FOMO person. So I had to be a part of whatever I could be a part of. And I didn't have time for lunch, and, I didn't have time to do those things because I wanted to hang out with everybody. And then I was a smoker. So I didn't feel like I needed to eat because I was a smoker when I was a teenager. And so growing up, it was always oh, you're so skinny, or all those things. And it was just I wasn't healthy though. I didn't understand the value of food. I didn't understand the value of water, of nourishing myself. So I think at that age, it really skewed my brain of oh, this is what pretty and all of these things should be. And I'm not trying to be those things. I just am. And then that started being well, if this is how I'm properly accepted, then I must continue to be this way. And that's where body dysmorphia started with me. It wasn't I immediately wasn't eating and all those things. It's just, I'm just naturally leaner person, very tall. But that doesn't mean that's my all genetics as well. And I do now take care of myself, but I didn't back then. So anyways, I think that's where for me, body dysmorphia started. And then obviously there's MTV and you're growing up. And then I think for me, the biggest was Playboy. I was never going to be that thin, blonde, blue-eyed, big tit, super skinny, perfect. I just not built that way. And that's okay. But I did not think back then too, right? So I think this is why I think it's so important to talk about breast implant illness and all that, because I was definitely one of the girlies that was very pushed at a young age to think about getting breast implants and all that. And I'm just so scared of surgeries and all of that. And then when I actually became not afraid of surgeries, I was well, I'm not taking time off the gym to do that. And then in my 30s, I just didn't care anymore. So, yeah, I think that's for me a big part of where my body dysmorphia stemmed. But again, I wasn't allowed to talk about that. I had to keep quiet about it. So it was just very, it was just oh, the pretty girl, the skinny girl thinks she feels bloated today. You don't even know. It's this weird, comparison. It's oh, well, you don't have it as bad, quote unquote, as I do. Therefore, we're dismissing your experience. I think that was a lot of what I felt. And that's one reason, again, why I didn't want to talk about this, because I felt growing up, if I ever brought it up, I was slammed down and not be able to talk about it, which, okay, fair. Maybe to some people, I didn't have, maybe I did have their ideal body and that's what they wish to have, but it's not fair to say then the person with that body is then living their best life either. You know what I'm saying? And I think I learned that as I grew up, is that I actually started becoming more vocal about it and asking, or when people felt comfortable to tell me their experiences in larger bodies, I wanted them to understand that I'm not trying to take away your experience by any means, but it happens to me too. And then sometimes I'd find commonality, or some people again would slam me down and be well, you don't even understand because you're accepted in the world. And it's just I didn't feel accepted in the world. I didn't feel that was, that was accurate. Just because you felt that way about me, you don't know what I'm going through, what I've gone through personally. Right. So it solidified that I shouldn't be talking about this and I shouldn't have this worry, but I did. And it was just such a weird thing. Anyway, so for me, I was always threatened because I was so small. People threatened to beat me up all the time. I was told, especially just when I got married, that if I wanted to have a baby, that I should probably eat more. There was one time when I was living in Grand Prairie, at this time when I was getting married, when someone made that comment. I was working 5+ days a week. I was teaching 5 to 6 days a week, physically teaching cardio classes. I would go to the gym before work. My job was so straining. And then I was doing photography. I was not eating. I was not well. I was mentally not well. I was in a very toxic environment, very toxic friendship. I was not doing well. And then I was praised for what my body looked like. And I know bodybuilders go through this as well when they go through going up to prep. They're on stage, they're performing, and then there's all these compliments. And then when you're in off season, people are complimenting or are pointing out that you're in your off season, stuff like that too, right? So it is very, and I'm not trying to elaborate this on a little bit more, but it would definitely be more in the place where, when you get to the extreme side of the thins, which we're going to talk about all these sides in a minute here, once I explain just my history here in this space or how I feel, on the pro-ana side, quote unquote, like the pro-anorexic side, you know, that is very much like you get praise for that, or anybody talks about your body at all. It like fuels your dysmorphia and your anorexia, from my understanding, from just my mild experience with that. Because again, I don't believe I was anorexic in the sense that I was like sorting out doing that for that sole purpose consciously, but I think subconsciously that's what I thought. And then I just kept myself so busy that I didn't take care of myself. And I believe that that is a form of eating disorder as well. Then I went to the other side into fitness and got into macro counting and the calorie counting and all of that. And although it's good for some people, if you have issues with that, it could be detrimental at the time as well, right? Going from one addiction to another. And that's just what I did. I went from, being hyperactive and not taking care of myself to like, oh my God, I need to take care of myself, but then overdoing it all the other time too, in the extremes of fitness. Once I realized fitness was good, and then I overdid it. So you really have to address the addictive behavior and the obsession and the potential mask that you're doing for no matter what. If you're not eating enough, if you're over focused on it, if you're over body checking, if you're overeating, right? Like there are extremes to every single side of that. And I think that that's really at the end of the day, what should be called out and separated from just, for example, not all thin people are anorexic. Not all large people, fat people are obese, right? So, and I'm not all obese or anorexic people are necessarily ill. Everyone's going to be different. You can't really judge it on the outside. That's for each individual people, but they're on the more, let's say, extreme sides that do lead to medical issues. And I'm not saying that we should shame or we should do whatever, but I also feel like we've swung the pendulum on the other side here of, on both sides and both extremes is kind of embracing the extremes and saying people are brave for doing that thing. But then when they're actually putting themselves at medical risk, that's the issue. Another issue that comes up is that by looking at someone, just their body, you actually can't tell unless they're like green or whatever, because you can't, if they're actually unhealthy or not, because I very much disagree that there's health at every size. I think that it's easier to say that every body is going to have a healthy size, and that's going to look different on anybody and everybody, right? So I think for me, saying that any size that my body can get is healthy is incorrect, because I have been on the higher side where I was about 160 pounds and I felt, and again, that's going to be big to some people and maybe not to others. Everyone's different. Okay. So please just like remove and just hear me out. Okay. So I went from 115 to 120 pounds up to 160 in a matter of 3 or 4 months because of the combination of my birth control and my SSRI. I ballooned. That 160, I felt so sick, you guys, like so sick mentally, physically, all of that. My body, that did not feel healthy. Being chronically on an SSRI for the year, not healthy for me. Everyone gets their own opinion, not healthy for me. So that 160, that was not healthy. Dial back to the 115, 120 at the time when I did start going on SSRIs and taking care of, that wasn't healthy either. 115, 120 wasn't healthy for me either, but I went all the way up. And then after I went off my SSRIs, I went off birth control, I had a miscarriage. Those are all in the podcast. I then went the opposite direction and I was extreme gym, extreme cardio, extreme focused on eating to the point where I got back down to about 150 15 pounds, but it was a couple years later from when I originally was. And it was from not doing things properly, overworking myself, not eating, like not actually taking care of myself, and my body showed. But let me tell you, the rewards and things I got at that size, your brain immediately goes, well, I should go back there because that's the best that I've looked because people told me that's when I looked good, right? And that's when I was telling myself I looked good. I was looking for ulterior validation and I was getting it and it felt good. So it must be right, even though they didn't know what it took in the background to get there, right? So I was originally 115, 120 from overworking, from doing too many classes, being in toxic environments. Then I got out of that environment. I started working out in other spaces and other environments, starting surrounding myself with better people, got a better man, went on SSRIs. Then I skyrocketed up to 160. Then I got off SSRIs, birth control, got extreme about my diet and all that, went in the opposite direction, then had a miscarriage then. And then I was like, I need to stop. We need to move. We moved our entire lives. We moved. I was like, this is just not healthy for me in either capacity. It's just not a good place for me in the current place. Love Grand Prairie, love y'all. It was just not a good time for me and I needed to get out. And so then we moved to Kelowna and that's where I started being like, hey, I need to actually figure out what the fuck balanced is. I need to let my body put the weight back on and I need to not get obsessive about it. I need to not be chasing that six pack. That's not healthy with me when I'm coming off birth control, trying to rebalance my hormones, so. And then now I'm living in a space where it's just like, yeah, abs would be cool. And sometimes I look leaner than others, but then I get my period and I bloat and it is what it is. So I am not perfect in my body dysmorphia, and nor do I feel like I'll ever stop this fight. And for me, my fight is more face dysmorphia. But I just wanted to kind of preface a little bit, like, if you haven't been here on the show, if you're maybe just watching me or seeing pictures of me and then you're just thinking, hey, like, you're skinny, you don't get, an opinion, you don't like, you're already the reason why I get an opinion. You know what I'm saying? Like, you already have a bias. It's just different. It's just not talked about, because I will agree that a lot of, unfortunately, actually no, because I get just as much hate. Like, literally on one post, I was told I was fat and too skinny by 2 different people on one Instagram post. So it's just like, you're never going to please everyone. I think that's just, I want to bring the commonalities while also highlighting that I understand that in each one, there's going to be different issues, and in each side of the spectrum here, we'll call it, there's going to be red and green flags. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. And like, where did body positivity movement even come from? Like, what does this even mean? When people even say body positivity, some people don't even understand what it means. So let's start there. And then I want to go into, again, some green flags that I see in each, let's say, quote unquote, community or movement, and some red flags, from skinny talk to fit talk to fat talk to all of them, right? Body neutrality, all of that. Let's look through all of them together. And then you guys let me know in your comments what your experience is. And if you'd want to come on the show to talk about your body movement experience, whether it's been in the fat positivity one, in the skinny talk, maybe you became a bodybuilder and you see some of the hate that gets online for bodybuilding. Maybe you want to clear that up. Would love to hear it. But body positivity is a social movement that promotes a positive view of all bodies, regardless of size, shape, skin tone, gender, and physical abilities. Proponents focus on the appreciation of the functionality and health of the human body instead of its physiological appearance. This is similar to the concept of body neutrality that focuses on a similar concept. So body positivity advocates for believes that size, gender, race, sexuality, physical capability is one of the many ways that our bodies are placed in power and desirability hierarchy. In other words, judgments about one's physical appearance inherently place on a certain rung of ladder that rates on values and desirability, effectively increasing and reducing one's power in society. The movement aims to challenge unrealistic ideals of physical attractiveness, build positive body image, and improve self-confidence. A central belief advocated is that beauty is a construct of society, and that this construct should not determine one's self-confidence or self-worth. Individuals are encouraged to love themselves to the fullest while not accepting but even embracing their physical traits, which again, like, I totally agree. Like, absolutely. I love the idea of body positivity, no matter your size, no matter the color, no matter what you do with it, how you paint your body, whether you do, whether you don't, whether you dress up, dress down, tattoos, piercings, hair colors. Like, I truly think you need to do whatever makes you happy. I honestly do believe that. I think what I get caught up on is that I understand that there's a construct of society and that people get upset about it because a lot of people are trying to live within it because of the marketing and the things that we're seeing. But we are also the society that constructs it, right? So if we claim to hate those things, how do they still exist? So for example, if we hate that For example, let's just take boobs. I see a lot of comments in the comment sections that'll say, oh, I don't do these things for men. I do them for myself. Okay, that's fair. But why are we doing that? Like, are we really so that we can like look feminine and look beautiful for whom? For what? And maybe that's not men, but like for the opposite sex, right? You're doing it for you. And I guess in my mind, and might get hate for this, and this is a controversial take. If you're saying you're not doing it for everyone in the society and the constructs, but the constructs are bigger boobs better, are you not living within that construct? So then you're doing what society wants, quote unquote. And again, maybe controversial take, by not getting big boobs and just accepting the boobs that you have, big, little, small, flat, purple, yellow, whatever kind of titties you got, isn't that maybe going against the construct and being body positive? And accepting your body without changing it to the constructs in which we claim to hate? Maybe I had to look at that myself. So when I say this shit, y'all, I'm talking about like how I had to look inside. So for me, no boobs. I've talked about this plenty of times. This is why I praise the women with breast implant illnesses coming out and sharing this, because they've literally saved my life. Because had the money been right, had I not been such a fucking pussy, I would have got them. But then I actually had to sit back and I said, Brandy, why do you want big boobs? Truly. So that you feel like you could be a real woman. Okay. Are you a real woman? Yes. Are the size of your boobs dictating if you're a woman or not? No. I mean, we won't get into the gender conversation today and all of that. But like, to me, is that what makes you a woman? No. Would you be comfortable getting this done and enjoy it? No. Do you want to spend the money on it? No. Who are you doing this for? Is it for yourself? Do you think, this is just me, okay? Do you think that you will feel more attractive with them truly? Because you just told yourself that your breast size has nothing to do with you being a woman. Perhaps your confidence and your feminine energy is what needs to be worked on to innate that, relay that, whatever, what I'm trying to say, emulate that to the world. Do I feel that bigger boobs are going to do that? On the outside, maybe. But if I haven't worked on that confidence in the inside of my feminine energy, I don't know that those boobies are going to relate. Because I'm probably not really, if I'm not feeling feminine inside and I haven't worked on that, the outside, maybe on the outside gaze and attention, I'll get that. But internally, again, speaking for myself, don't hate me in the comments, is that going to? And I had to be honest with myself, no. So I was doing, and I would do it, to fit into society so that they would think that I'm more attractive and more of a woman than myself. That's just something that I want to look at. So my question is, and again, that could be it. I'm not discrediting that. I'm saying my experience. I had to say, hey, I am actually just bleeding into this construct of society that I claim to hate, because I still feel like a woman. I just feel like other people would be like, oh, no doubt that's a beautiful woman. Look at how big or how perfect she is with her perfect, like when I'm doing these things and I've stopped myself, it's because I'm trying to build that construct of the perfect woman and fall into that and mutilate or change myself to get into that. And that's where I question a lot of this body positivity. Of course, queens, do whatever you want, okay? Truly, you can all say I'm haters. I'm not. I'm just afraid of all those things, so I'm not doing it. And yes, do I want us all to be miserable and hate ourselves together? Yes, of course. Misery loves company. The fuck? No, I'm just kidding. It for me wouldn't do it. I literally was sitting in the mirror today looking at how deep my 11s are. And it's like, I just can't do Botox, guys. I just can't. It's just like with the vaccine. There's just something in me and that just says, don't do these things. It's not good for you. And I just listen to that intuition and I have to deal with it. And so you can call me a hater for it, but no, I'm just terrified of reactions. So if I don't put it in my body, if I don't do that surgery, I won't react to it. Excuse me. My job is interviewing people that have been fucked up by products and things and services and medicine. So apologies if I'm scared of this shit. But even before this though, I had to really check with myself. And by the time I got to 30, I really didn't care anymore. And to be honest, I had watched some of my friends go through breast implant, like I didn't know at the time, but breast implant illness, issues with them, having to get them reconstructed, not feeling like getting them and not having the confidence that they thought. And so it just at 30, I was just like, fuck it, whatever, who cares now? Now I just embrace them. So, when it comes to body positivity and these social constructs, I do wonder, it's like, y'all, I know that we say that there's a construct, but then we also have to be self-reflecting. Are we contributing to these societal like norms or deciding what is beautiful. Like the trends change and it depends on what people do and what people fall in. And the more people that do it, it becomes popular, makes people more money. The more people do it. And then it changes. Again, I've talked about this with eyebrows. No offense, y'all, but if you're a millennial, you probably went and got, microbladed too much, maybe some people. And now, moderate eyebrows are coming back or untouched eyebrows are coming back, right? So it's just like, I'm not judging. I'm just saying the trends change. So I think it's super important to like really self-embrace in some places, especially when these trends are changing, right? Like we go back in history, even body positivity has changed. We went from, back in the day, it was you were rich. You had lots of money if you were able to have a bigger body because that meant you were eating, right? So that versus we went into the 2000s when, we talk about the 90s and the early 2000s, we talk about like Nicole Richie and those skinny times and Paris Hilton and that unrealistic, like no waist, no hips, set situation. So then everyone tried to get to that. And then all of a sudden, a couple years later, it was about like curves and big boobs and BBLs and big and thick lips. And you know what I mean? So it's just like, again, if we don't want there to be a construct, we've got to stop constructing it. You know what I'm saying? And is it more of a rebellion to just embrace yourself? And again, I understand. You all don't think that I don't stare at these 11s and think, oh, I bet you everybody that looks at me probably looks at that. Because that's the popular thing to do, So we've all got it. And it's just like, do I care? Does that change the world? I don't know. So agreed with body positivity, but it's like we also have to be self-aware of what constructs we're adding to and quote unquote trends that make these things and like little things like eyebrows, makeup trends, clothes trends, like that doesn't really hurt. But when it comes to like the extremes of, like we're in the world of Ozempic and semaglutides and GLP-1s and all those things and people that are being called out that, don't need it, that aren't in those like heavier bodies that are struggling to lose weight. It's people with, an extra 30, 40 pounds that are trying to get this stuff off. And like, y'all go look at Sharon Osbourne and we'll talk about the extremes here. But I think, body positivity is amazing. And I just think too, as well, if we are talking about the patriarchy and these constructs and all those things, I think we have to self-reflect on which we're pushing stuff in, because let's just say you say, well, I don't dye my hair. I'm going to go completely natural and I'm not going to dye my hair. Fuck anybody and what the standard is of having dyed hair. But then you turn around and go get a bunch of Botox. I mean, you can't really hate one for the, you know what I mean? So it's just like, I don't think we should hate people and hate on those things, doing those things for sure. But I don't think in the same breath, if you are living those things, it's not fair to be pissed at society about how the construct is theirs when you're contributing it in a different way. And I've had to look at that myself too, don't get me wrong. Right? So that's just where I goes with that. So the body positivity movement, though, it sounds like it's saying that it has roots in the fat acceptance movement as well known as the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance. Body positivity differs from fat acceptance in that it's all encompassing and including all body types, whereas fat acceptance only advocates for individuals considered to be obese or overweight. The movement argues that neither fat shaming nor skinny shaming is acceptable and all body types can and should be celebrated, which I totally agree. So again, coming to like the body positivity where they're advocating for like body hair and I hate how the word bodily fluids, like why'd you guys say that? Why does that sound so nasty when I say that out loud? I know it's part of like, I know whatever, but it just like, there's some words. We all know the M word that I hate. Fluids is up on the list of things that I'd rather not talk about. In my car or in my body, to be honest with you. But the idea of body positivity too, I think is just embracing yourself and being that, if you want to wear different stuff or have your hair different or any of those things like that, if you, don't want to shave your legs, don't shave your legs. Like it's really whatever's comfortable for you and just fighting against those beauty standards, right? So that's where I fully accept that. Appreciate that, I should say. Sorry, not accept, appreciate. So the fat acceptance movement, also known as fat pride, fat empowerment, fat liberation, fat activism, is a social movement which seeks to eliminate the social stigma of obesity. Areas of contention include aesthetic, legal, medical approaches to fat people. The modern fat acceptance movement began in the late 1960s. Besides its political role, the fat acceptance movement also constitutes a subculture which acts as a social group for its members. The fat acceptance movement has been criticized for not adding value to the debate over human health, with some critics accusing the movement of promoting lifestyles that can have dire consequences. And then body neutrality is essentially focusing on not the physical attributes, but the functionality of your body and just kind of being neutral to it. So, it encourages the mindset that a person's bodily appearance and attitude towards it should have the least possible effect on their experience of life. Meaning that like your body and the ideas and the criticism and all that should just be further from what you should have to worry about. And I think that's where I align a little bit more of body neutrality is like, not really actually. I think I'm part of like more of the body appreciation phase of my life. What is it capable of doing? And what a beautiful machine it is to take care of itself, and that it can give you warning signs, and that it could be your worst enemy and your best friend, and it can make you do things that you never thought you could do, while some days you're just lazy as hell. Like, I'm really just for body appreciation, I think, but neutrality in the sense of if the scale fluctuates 5 to 10 pounds, I'm not going to lose my shit like I used to, because at the end of the day, that doesn't change me from being a kind person. It doesn't change me from being who I am as an individual. It's just a physical attribute. Now, where the line gets to is when those physical things start hurting your medical. And that's where I think the criticisms are all starting. So, definitely suggest going to look deeper into YouTube and into Wikipedia and all that. I know that there's deeper roots and there's more about this, but there's a lot to it and everyone has a different view on it. So I definitely suggest you going in and researching. But you know, when we scale out after these body positivity movements, the fat acceptance movements, all these things are really great. And I think that it has encouraged people to look at others in a different light, to understand other people's experiences. I think social media has done an amazing job at allowing more people to be empathetic in a way. I know that, but to understand other people's experiences. But there's also where we need to talk about where there's extremes on all sides of this, where we've taken it too far. And that actually is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this today, is because skinny talk came up on my TikTok page. And I wanted to know what the fuck is skinny talk, because I had heard of fat talk. I have, you know, seen that side of it. I've seen the mukbang side of things. I've seen feederism. You know, there's definitely a lot more out there from what I've seen for the larger body sizes. There's a whole conversation of like them being against each other in their own movement and saying, you know, that you're like a skinny fat, you're a fat. Like there's like all these different ways that they're labeling each other, and the exclusivity seems to go away when it's like, well, you are the smaller, larger body, so you can't talk about it. And I'm like, girl, I can relate, because all you guys say I can't talk about it either. One another reason why I'm scared of this, but we're going to go with it anyways, because I do think that there needs to be extremes called out on either side. So I'm going to start, just to make this easier, on the skinny talk side and the, let's say, pro-ana. And if you don't know what pro-ana is, it's pro-anorexic kind of side of things, right? So when we're looking at skinny talk, is very different from pro-anorexic talk from what I've seen. Now, skinny talk, from what I was told initially in a couple of videos that I had seen about it, is that they're saying, oh my God, we're going back to the Nicole Richie, the Paris Hilton times, where everybody is fat shamed no matter what size. I think all of us can look back and say that we felt fat shamed in that time, even though most, like probably some of us were normal bodies or skinny bodies or probably close to anorexic, and you know, we still felt that way. So I think everyone can go back to that. But when I dived into skinny talk even more, it actually just kind of seemed like it was for the most part, okay, we'll say 75% of it was actually really good tips on how to take care of yourself. Steps, movement, what you're eating, little reminders and affirmations to stop you in your bad habits, right? And so I guess it will depend on what part of your journey, how you view things will depend on how you view skinny talk. Now, again, when someone used to call me skinny back in the day, let me tell you, I wanted to fucking throw fists, because I related skinny to a negative thing. Because if anybody was mentioning that, let me tell you, it was not in a positive light. It was to either shame me or to give me a backhanded compliment, which neither are good. So that word really bothered me. I wanted to be called fit. I wanted to be called athletic. I wanted to be called lean. Maybe even thin. That kind of bothered me, but called skinny really bothered me, because it put me in a very vulnerable position where people could assault me and I couldn't do anything about it because I wasn't strong enough to defend myself. So I obviously had to think about some things when the word skinny talk came up, but then I went through it, and I literally went through like 50 or 60. Now I know that's not all of them, and I know my algorithm can be built for me, and there was some bitches on there that were saying some pretty not cool things, and there are things going around like that whole Pilates drama where there was this one girl saying that another bigger bodied girl shouldn't be going to Pilates. Like, no, none of that. Like, none of that. But like, oh my God, it was more just like little quotes to remind yourself, to keep you on track when you have goals. And people can hate physical goals and wanting to take care of yourself, but there is so many health benefits, you cannot deny it. And we'll talk about the obsessive side in a second here, that can happen. But to me, it wasn't living through that time where stick thin was very prominent and all of our clothes were made and we were like belly shirts, like low rise, like, come on, I was through it all, and this is not the same. I'm sorry, it's not the same. Maybe there's some girlies that got a little too Regina George. Okay, maybe they got a little too mean on Skinny Talk. I've seen it. But from what I've seen, the most of the advice is like just tips to remind yourself. And again, depending on where you are at your journey, you're going to be feeling this differently. But I think one of them was like, and there's some of the extremes, which I'm sure we don't like, but if it works for you in a kind way, but it, is just kind of saying you're not a dog while you're treating yourself. Little things like that. Like, I don't want to say this one because I actually didn't like this one, but like, what was it? Like skinny, nothing tastes better than how skinny feels or something like that. And I think, again, reframing that is just being like, is this adding value to my body? It's not, to me, it's like, I will have my treats, but it's like, is this nutrients? Is this food is medicine? So is this nourishing me? Is this nourishing my soul? Like, what is the purpose of this food? Right. And so, I think that there are some things that people can take toxic, but I think it's a lot of just fitness tips over the years, but just said very bluntly. And if you want to remain skinny, and again, so many people are like, ooh, skinny, don't say that. Why would you want to be that? Oh my God, that's so fat phobic that you want to be skinny. And it's like, again, I'm all for a better word. Is lean a better word? Is athletic? Like, the steps that you're taking there are going to get you to a smaller body, no matter what that looks like, or more muscular, depending on what you're doing for weight training, right? So I didn't get that vibe from Skinny Talk personally, but I also know that there's a lot of fucking assholes out there that do say those things. So I'm not discrediting that at all. And I'm not saying that there's not fat phobic people out there, and there's people that but there's also skinny phobic people out there too, you guys. I'm sorry. I've actually been told by an ex that I was uncomfortable to cuddle. Yeah. Really glad that he's with, a woman that's more his needs and wants now. That's amazing. I'm so happy for that. But that stung because it was just like, I put on weight. I put on 5 pounds and people are calling me fat. This is weird, right? So like, that happens too, right? So, but I'm not discrediting that. That does happen, but that is not the vibe that I got for 75% of it. It was more just like, okay, you want to do something with your body, you want to change, movement, sleep, like all the things that I would expect Fit Talk to be about is kind of what I seen in Skinny Talk. Drink water, move your steps, walk, move, make sure you're stretching, make sure you're taking breaks off social media, make sure you're sleeping properly. Are you, what are your supplements like? Are you getting blood work? Like, and a lot of stuff is just like people's journeys to losing weight. And I didn't think it was a negative. So I didn't see that. I think the pro anorexic side of TikTok and those types of things, that's more concerning. Now, one other thing I will say that really bothered me, though, is when I did go on Skinny Talk, there was all these warnings about loving your body and all of this. Again, the Skinny Talk content was definitely more just geared towards health and how to lose weight truly in more of a positive way. It wasn't like eat 1,200 calories. No, it was like eat lots of good food and clean food, and these are the ways to do it. Anyways, whatever. But it had this warning. Did not have the warning when you went to Fat Talk or fat positivity or any of that. Did not warn of any health things like that, but it did for and like there's not even pro. I don't think I couldn't find very much the pro anorexic, but there is groups of that, and to describe what that means, I think is again just the same thing as feederism, but in the opposite, where people enjoy seeing the weakness. Like, so there's been alleged rumors and allegations that people pay Eugenia Cooney, and if you don't know who that is, go look her up, Just be aware. There's a lot of people that say that people pay her in the pro Anna movement, and in her live stream, she'll go like move things. And I don't know, guys, it's not my yum. It's definitely not a yum for me. And I'm not going to try and yuck your yums. But people like that. People like all sorts of stuff. So they will pay to see that kind of content. Or on the flip side, the feederism is like the opposite, where they want to, pay them to eat. But there are some of the pro Anna sides. I don't see as much of that though on social media as I do of feederism and mukbangs. I will say that, and people that are like what I'm eating a day. It's very rare to see vlogs of people saying, here's what I'm not eating all day because it wouldn't be eating. So that's not really content I think that's generated, but I do think, and 100% is there, that people pay for that, to see that and promote that and continue those lifestyles and gaslight them into those. And again, go look at Eugenia Cooney, make that decision for yourself. But that's where I would say is very dangerous. And people, we have to be aware, people do die from anorexia. It's not a joke. It's not, there are extremes to that too. People's bodies start shutting down functions. Like, your body needs nutrients. And if you don't give that to them over time, even poor diets, more likely you're going to last longer than no diet at all, no food at all, because your brain isn't getting nutrients, your body's not getting nutrients, then things are not going to function properly, and things will shut down, unfortunately. So there is absolutely a risk to skinny talk and going too far off of that. But again, there wasn't that kind of behavior. You didn't look on there and see everyone bone thin and almost to death, right? And again, of course, you can't judge, but I think we can all know when there's the extremes. I think we're not all stupid. Like, we know the extremes are in the room with us. It's very evident if you were to look at someone and they're literal skin and bones. And I'm not just talking about like when me at my size be told that I'm skin and bones. I'm talking like you can see every muscle, every bone in their body. There's zero meat to it. And again, it could be medical, of course, but it's those extremes that are scary that attract these crazy people to pay them more money to keep into this. But I did not see as much content as my point. When I look at skinny talk and all that, I did not see a bunch of that pro Anna stuff. However, in the body positivity, let's say, or fat movement or fat talk, I did see a lot more of the feederisms and the mukbangs, and then people continue feeding that. So I think the red signs is like, yeah, you absolutely can be starving yourself, and that is not healthy. That is not good. Your body is, and it could lead to death. So there's absolutely concerns on those extreme sides, without a doubt. But coming back into the middle, where we're looking at like skinny talk, where it's just people trying to find, it's just, to me, it looked like I said, more fit talk, but more like your older sister being like, put that down. You don't need that. That's your fourth cake. And like, guys, we don't need it. Not all this stuff is good. It's not good on our bodies all the time. No one's ever going to tell you should not eat more carrots, but even if you eat too many carrots, that's not good for you either, right? It's moderation. But sweets just seem so fucking damn good because we're feeding into a sugar addiction, right? So there is extremes on that side. Skinny talk, I feel like, is the more middle ground. Now let's jump to like the fitness side of it, where there's lots of toxicity in the fitness industry as well. We've got coaches that are on steroids, gear that they're not telling people about, or get my body this way, but really they're fucking taking a bunch of Anavar or like growth hormones. And you're like, how did that woman get such big arms? Not everybody. There are natural ones, but there's a lot of lying in that. We know there's lots of photoshopping if you're following pages like Goob on Instagram. If you're not, you absolutely should. Goob. Follow him. He calls out everyone that photoshops. And these to me are hard to see. I wouldn't see them just flipping through Instagram, but he blows it up and you're like, oh my gosh, I can see where they've pulled their waist in. Like, there's filters that put abs on you now. Like, you can move your body in and out. You could change your entire face. You could have a whole identity online with AI now, and people wouldn't even know that you're not a real person at this point. You might be some slip ups, but so there is this huge toxicity of lying and extremes on that side, where people, and not all people, shut the fuck up, don't come at me, but there are people that go back on back competitions, and they're continually in a deficit. They're continually with women. We shouldn't be having shredded abs all year round for our hormones, right? Like, there's more damage that can be done for women than there are men when it comes to being that lean all the time. Throughout, people lose their cycles. There's lots of women that lose their cycle. I would say most women that I know that compete have lost their cycle due to the low amount of body fat on their bodies. I don't know if that's the full thing, but when their bodies get down to that low body fat, that seems to be when they lose their period. And it could be just from the strain of competing, and then that puts a lot on your body too, right? Like you're constantly overworking because you have to get the body. And I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't, guys. I'm just saying that there are extremes in that too, where on the outside, you might not see it. And you're like, oh my God, your body is it's perfect. It's stage perfect. You've even got trophies. Meanwhile, they've lost their periods. They've lost their sanity. They're afraid of food. They're cold all the fucking time. And again, these are what some people know is to be there, and they chase that, and that's all good. But it just because, again, looking at that fittest body, that one, that trophy, that doesn't necessarily equal health, right? Even though you think they're at the prime, because look at their bodies in a perfect sculpted for bodybuilding. Not optimal health. If you go to test a lot of these competitors, I'm sure their hormones are going to be out of whack. There's a lot of things, and they know that, and a lot of them come down properly and reverse diet, and they do things right, but some of them don't, and it really fucks them up. And then all of a sudden they've gained 30 pounds after, and then all the validation that they got on stage about how perfect their body is, now everyone's looking at them and being like, well, you're definitely in your off season. Like, that fucks with your head, that fucks with your body. Right? That's where I was saying there's validation. Everyone gets that validation, and it sucks because then you're like, oh, that's the body that I should be. And most of the time, not always, but sometimes then you are at the extremes, right? So I think that is something that maybe the fat acceptance movement maybe won't understand of, and maybe they do when they lose weight, they get that validation. But when they're at their extreme worst, unhealthy, they're not necessarily getting praised, but we will talk about the avenue that does. But those that are like extremely skinny or at their best in body competitions, they are getting those compliments, and it's so fucks with your brain, right? So the red flags on the fitness side of things is, yeah, people can be editing their photos without you knowing that, right? People can be taking steroids or supplements that they're not sharing, but they're saying, hey, buy my 8-week program and this is how you can get to my body. Lies. At least be fucking honest about it. Do whatever you're going to do, but be honest about it. But that's super toxic. And then building these unrealistic standards of like, oh, I just did this and ate this and I got here. And it's like, well, no, you did other things and you other tools. Does that discredit your work? No. But also kind of playing that copy and paste is the same for everybody is insane. And that is a huge thing in the fitness industry. That's scary, right? Then, like I said, you've got all these editings and all these like lies, and it becomes a toxic space of not understanding what healthy is in that space as well, because there are extremes, right? And then even as just a normal everyday person like me, like then I'm always in the gym with these people with 6-packs, and I'm like, I'm never going to have that. And then I'm comparing, and I'm like, stop this. Like, this isn't accepting your body. You're fine with it because you really enjoyed lying in bed eating cake with your man last night and watching a movie. Like, peak adulthood, cats in bed, watching whatever you want. Parents don't get to tell you anymore. You get to eat cake in bed. It's Saturday night. You're not going to have a hangover tomorrow. Peak adulthood, peak what I want to do. I'm not giving that up. We, go to a restaurant. I'm going to, and that's for everybody, each their own. This is coming from my side, but saying that there is red flags and toxic on all sides here, right? And also the mentality, I'm sorry, in the fitness industry sometimes can be super toxic. I know we're getting in a place that is a lot better, but let me tell you, nothing disgusts me more when I see coaches pretty much just shredding other people. Like, I understand that bodybuilding is something and it could be like a shame to the sport, but you can't scream exclusivity and then just shit on everyone and be like, that person wasn't ready. And like the amount of people that I've heard that say, it just makes me sad, because it's like, you guys were all in one space one day. Maybe someone can't afford it, and maybe they can afford to just do this once and they do it one time. Like, just the people like in that space telling others that it's a disgrace and that they don't deserve to be there, or you would never let them walk with your name. Like, I don't know. If I was a coach, that's just not something I'd want to be, and I'd not want to be a representation of that. And I think that I would lean to more of the natural bodybuilding competitions where they're just a little bit more down to earth. And I'm sure it's there too, but like, I've never heard that come out of a natural competitor or fitness coach's mouth of like, that person shouldn't walk the stage because it's an abomination kind of thing. And I have seen it in the others. And I get when you get high up, but come on, you guys, like, that to me is just really sad, and I feel that's really toxic. And when I hear other coaches that sit at the gym and talk shit about other clients or their clients, that's just gross, and it does happen. Don't act like it doesn't. I'm sorry. I've been around the gym for 15, 20 years. I've heard it. I've sat across the table at people that have talked shit about their fucking clients. It's toxic and it's disgusting, and then turn around and take their money. It's gross, and it happens far often. And now that there is an even surge even more of online coaches, I imagine it happens even more because people are just looking to make money off of people, looking to make money, not looking to make a difference. like it used to. It blew up online, and I'd say there was a good 30% of people that just want to make money and make coaches and more coaches and MLM stack pyramid scheme coaches of online coaching. But it's just like, it's a lot of copy and paste, and a lot of people have gotten hurt and burned by that. And so that does make me really sad on that side. So that to me are the like negatives and the red flags. Now, red flags on the body positivity, fat acceptance side, okay? I can't say what size is healthy on anybody, but what I think is toxic and scary is this feederism and mukbang type content where people tune in to watch individuals. If you don't know what a mukbang is, go look it up. Look at Nikocado Avocado. I know Trisha Paytas has done them before in the past. And I don't imagine that they were always like this. I imagine mukbang started where it was just people eating food and sharing their experience. And like a lot of them say that it's like eating dinner with you and having a conversation and sharing like a review, which I think is great. But then we've got to the extremes where people are eating mass amount of food a lot of the time. Again, look at Nick Avocado. That's a whole other conversation. But just the amounts that he would eat. And then once you start gaining traction on that kind of content, it's noticed that no other content is being watched. So there is a YouTuber named Obese to Beast. He reports a lot on this because he used to be obese and now he's a beast. And so he talks a lot about the body positivity movement and fat acceptance and all of those bigger body and let's say fat talk or larger creators that are out there. He talks a lot about their lives and their situations and kind of explaining, you know, his thoughts on it. So that's where I learned about like death feederism and the dangers of some of these mukbangers where, you know, let's say like Amberlynn Reed or there's one woman named Candy. They do a lot of content of them eating and maybe an extreme amount, and that's what their viewers like to watch. And so when they do something else, they don't get as many views. So then it's like they're continually always going to then have to put themselves at eating that to make money and to make content. And that's fine until it's not, right? And so, and you can look this up. This isn't me saying this. This isn't me being fat phobic. This isn't me being a hater. But there are a lot of creators in that space that have passed away, unfortunately, because there are complications with becoming obese and overweight for your body. Now, no one can say by looking at you, because everyone's different, I'm not going to say that, right? That I can look at you, but you're going to have health markers that are going to tell you that, right? And unfortunately, that does happen more often in bigger bodies because it's just, I feel like, because gratefully so, this positivity movement has changed where there has been more acceptance. Like I said, there's now an extreme where we're promoting that on TV, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't have these individuals on TV. That's not what I'm saying, but it is strictly around their weight gain and all that. So that when they lose weight, is that content relevant anymore? Are they going to want to use you in those, right? And so, and you can see what happens too. One other thing that I find super negative, and I'm sure maybe they do it on the fit side, I'm not entirely sure, I don't think so, but the minute someone, let's say like Lizzo or Adele, go to lose a bunch of weight, then there's uproar that they're shaming or like hating on the platform that they, you know, body positivity of, you know, accepting your body, and now they're trying to lose weight and they're going on diets and they're focusing on those things, and that's now being viewed as like a traitorous thing, and how dare you, you know, it's just kind of, once you're not a part of the group, you can't be a part of the group. And it's like, I thought we were talking about body positivity. And if you want to feel positive about your body and you're not feeling positive about your body, then you have to make changes. And some of those changes might lead you to losing weight. And that's just because, like, and everyone's different. So maybe that's not how you gained your large body. But for me, when I'm in a larger body, it's because I was on an SSRI and on medications that was holding water and it didn't feel good. There's times where I just eat like shit. Like, I like to eat 80-20. 80% clean, 20. But sometimes it's literally the opposite. Maybe it's 100. And when I do that consecutively, I personally feel like shit. And then I feel like I look like shit and I am more winded and I just don't feel good in my body because those ingredients don't mesh well with my body. More natural stuff does. My body's able to process it. The energy is being dispersed properly instead of working all this time to get through all this shitty food that I've eaten and all these chips. And my body's not used to that. If I was eating a bunch of grapes, my body seems to break that down a lot better. If I'm eating a banana versus a brownie, you know, that's going to go through my body and a cellular level, it's going to fuel and be more energetic and better for me. So I'm going to feel better. It's not about like, oh, you just eat junk food and shit. And it's like, that is actually a thing for some people. And if it's not for you, fucking that must be great. But I can't do that personally. So I know when I'm carrying a little bit more and I've been eating like shit, like I have. I stopped doing the last month. I've stopped doing morning cardio. I just wanted a break and I'm feeling it. And it's not like anybody, I just don't feel as energetic during the day. I don't feel as good. I don't feel as motivated to eat better, But then if I looked at that by the standards of like, the fat acceptance movement, it's like I am now fat phobic because I just want to feel better in my body because that extra food and not doing that is making me feel sluggish. When in reality, I'm just like or like non-energy phobic. Like I am obsessed with having energy. I need it to get through the day. And so I know the things that make me feel energetic, and eating like shit and not doing and moving my body personally for me doesn't feel good. And over time it feels worse. Right. So, it's just shitty that some of this content is also now monetized, because then it puts these creators in these positions that they know that that's how they make money. That's the only thing. So then they're going to have to do it. And it's keeping them in this perpetual cycle, which is shitty. Like that just sucks. Like, I don't know what to say. And it does lead to certain things, right? Like I've heard one girl come out, like I said, so Lizzo and Adele, they're doing that to feel better, and then they're being hated on. And it's just like, but it's not about that. It's about feeling better in our bodies. It's about being positive about our bodies. It's not about hating. It's about wanting to live longer and do all of those things. And maybe in my current position that is maybe bigger is putting me at risk for that. And maybe I just want to feel better. Maybe I don't want to continue, right? And I think people need to self-reflect before they project on what people are doing. If someone wants to lose weight and feel better in their body, that doesn't mean that you have to, or they think that you're less than. Equal to if someone decides that, hey, working out right now and doing all that is just not for me, macro counting, I just want to live a normal life. That doesn't mean that you're disordered eating. But there is disordered eating. And I would argue that there's a lot of body checking and disordered eating across the board. You look at Pro Anna, they're known for body checking. That is the whole thing, is checking their body and being told they're skinny. Now tell me please what the line is of checking your body every single day as a bodybuilder, or someone just goes to the gym and weighing yourself every single day. When does that become just a data collection versus an obsession? I imagine all this comes down to emotions. And if it dictates your, to the point of body neutrality, is it ruining your entire life by taking those pictures, by body checking? Or is it you're collecting data, so you're like, hey, when I felt the best and I looked the best, this is what I was doing, or just to keep you accountable. There's lines, right, that each individual is going to have to assess for themselves when they're crossing. Macro counting, food counting, when does that become a disordered eating? When you're so emotional to those numbers that you can't just live a normal life without getting outside of those numbers. When does that become disordered eating and just taking care of yourself, right? Same with the gym. When does that become an addiction, and an unhealthy addiction, and overtraining versus not moving your body at all, right? So it's just like, what are those fine lines? You have to look at yourself. And by looking at each individual person, I don't think we're going to be able to tell personally. You can get an idea, but you don't really know. And I think this is where body shaming and judging comes in. It's just like, you can't say that a person is healthy or not because you don't know. But there could be markers that are, or they could be saying to yourself, like, they could be saying to you, oh, I just have no energy, I'm always tired, and all this is like, okay, maybe that's attributed to some health concerns. And and it just goes back to most health concerns have to be like, what are you eating? What are you drinking? And what are you moving your body? That is not fat phobic. It is just facts that if you don't take care of the foundation, and you're not building a healthy foundation by your nutrition and your health and your movement, it's going to cause to other problems. Doesn't matter what side of the scale you're on. So, what are the green flags? Let's end with some green flags and some things that I absolutely love from each side that I hope we can go forward with. I honestly, guys, did not think I'd be able to talk for 20 minutes, but here we are. So I really hope you like this. I'm trying to take as least amount of water breaks, but your girl's a stoner. It's kind of hard not to, and I'm getting real dry here, but we're almost at the end. So green flags. So from the body positivity movement, I think, encompasses everything. It's about loving your body no matter what you look like, no matter what color you are, no matter what gender you are, no matter how much hair, little hair you have, no matter how many scars you have, how many limbs you have missing. It's about accepting who you are and that your worth isn't based off of that. And if you might not fall into a social construct, who the fuck cares, right? Great. Love that. So looking over to like the fat acceptance movement, I think it's super important. I think that fat people, let's stop demonizing these words, okay? I think people that have fat, carry fat, have a little, we all do. consider themselves a larger body. I think it's so amazing the work that has been done to make sure that people understand that it's not, because again, society and those constructs and the things that you were told was that all fat people are lazy. And that is just not true. We know that all bodies are capable of doing so much, and we will have our own limitations based on a variety of things, and body size may be one of them, but it is not always. So I think it's really great that we started that conversation, not only for everybody to be more empathetic of people with bigger bodies and sharing things that are hard in society, like fitting in certain chairs or being able to shop at certain places, and that the beauty of how much that has grown so that there are more accessible clothings, locations, situations, things at hotels, like all those things. I think it's super important. And I think that's such a green light for leading the way of accepting bodies and having the conversations of it and the things that could change to fit more people. So that's really good. Green flag. I absolutely love that. I love people embracing their bodies. I think that's great. When it comes to skinny talk, I think these fucking tips are great. They're definitely things I'm incorporating and little things that I'm saying in my head okay, I get a treat. Absolutely. Does it need to be a bag of chips, or could it be, carrots? Because carrots are going to give me nutrients. That's going to make me smarter. That's going to help on a micronutrient level. It's going to be better for me, and I'm going to feel better. My body's going to digest it better. I know that it is a better choice. My brain is going to feel better in a sense because and I'm going to build a new habit of doing this instead of just reliving that, right? So I think it is helping reframe our minds when it comes to health and wellness and importance, and really fighting your own inner demons, because that's in our minds who we're fighting with the most, right? So I think it's helping you battle those inner demons and those excuses if you're looking to change them. If not, don't go on Skinny Talk then. Just don't. It's very simple to not go on it. So I think, they're really helping me reframe and shut out the noise of taking care of yourself and bringing it back to basics. So I think that is really great. I really look forward to seeing where that goes. And then for the fitness side, there's so many people in the fitness industry that motivate me. Anytime that I'm like, I'm lazy. I'm like, but this person can do it and I can do it. And without fitness instructors and coaches and, macro teachers and dietitians, like we wouldn't be able to, as a society, move forward and take care of our bodies and focus on. And also there's a really good gym culture and really good place there where people are accepted and everyone starts at the beginning. So there is a really beautiful community in the fitness industry coming together and making sure that even if you're your first time in your door, you're going to feel like you're at home. I know my gym, The Realm, does that for sure here in Kelowna, and I'm very, very blessed for that. And, everything that I've ever experienced in a gym is my own making. It's my own anxiety that I came up with. It's not because anybody did anything. It's just what I think people are doing, which is completely made up. So I do absolutely appreciate Fit Talk and everybody on the fitness side that, aren't taking it to extremes and lying to their clients. I think there's so much value out there in sharing health and wellness. And I think if we can just keep away the shitty people, I think it's definitely one of the most beautiful industries out there that is truly changing people's lives in so many ways, and not just because of how they look, because we all know that when you start chasing that feel of feeling strong, feeling better, feeling like you have control, the body does follow in its own ways, and that's just an added bonus. And I think people get it mixed up. I think if you go to health and wellness to do just the aesthetic, you're going to be disappointed. But if you go at it as in, this is health, this is wellness, this is adding years to my life, those type of things, it'll be super positive. So like I said, guys, there's commonalities, there's hate on either side, there's extremes on either side, there's positivities on all sides. Every single side has a positive or negative and an extreme. And I think as long as we work really hard to not live in those standards that we say that we hate and make them live and breathe, and we accept that other people have different body types and sizes and shapes, and just leave them as they be. If they're not harming you or calling you personally something wrong, then who fucking cares? It really doesn't affect the people that are pushing, like, you have to accept this. You have to tell me that you're attracted to this, and you're fat phobic if you don't say you want to date me because you're more into people that are just more active. Like I talked about this in my episode with Star Sen back in season 8. Was it season 8? Sorry, season 7. I'll maybe link that episode and put it in the description. But, we talked about the extremes on that as well. And so I think that we could all do some inner work to accept everybody's bodies a little bit more and really work. I think once we accept our own body, that's half the battle. Once we accept our own body, then other people's bodies don't seem to matter as much. And I feel like that's for myself personally. The more and more comfortable I'm getting, the more and more I'm noticing that judgmental noise that has been created over years, because we're all guilty of it. Whether that's one side or the other, that's in all avenues that I talked about today. Those thoughts cross, and you just have to work on the inside to reframe those patterns. And for yourself, if you need somewhere like Fat Talk to have more acceptance of your body, go follow them. If you need more tips like your older sister telling you to put that fourth donut down, because yes, you do want to, feel better. And fourth donut is an extreme, like go to Skinny Talk, and if you need fitness coaches, there is so many fitness influencers. Just find ones that you know are real, and follow Goob so you know that he'll call out the ones that aren't. But yeah, guys, that was my wrap up of All Body Movement podcast today. I'm so glad that I was able to nail out an hour solo. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If, like I said, if you want to come on the show next season, season 10, and talk about your experience and any body positivity movements or anything like that, please let me know. I would love to have you on the show. But if not, thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on notifications. And until next time, guys, that's a lot of head movements if you're watching. Bye. We end it weird. Okay. Bye. Thank you guys so much for listening. I truly appreciate the support. If you like this episode and you want to hear more, please follow the Be Real Babe podcast on Spotify, Apple, and Rumble. You can also find me at the Be Real Babe podcast on TikTok and Instagram. Until next time, guys. Bye.